you need to go to medical school. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hopefully y'all blessed, amazing, great, the whole nine. So if you're new, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you comment. My name is Michael Benjamin. I'm the CEO of Consumer Ammunition Tactics, or CAT. And yeah, so today we're going to be talking about how to build a perfect credit profile, how to get perfect credit in 2023, right? And the episode, or today's YouTube video, is sponsored by my free guide. I want to just give y'all some free sauce as we go on about the video. So if you want to get the free guide to help you kickstart your credit and get that perfect credit in 2023, what you're going to want to do is text the word perfect to 914-353-4741. Text the word perfect to 914-353-4741. So, sidebar, I wasn't going to drop this video. I just came from the gym. I was tired. I was about to go to sleep, but I was like, y'all need the sauce. I got to prepare y'all for the sauce. I got to prepare y'all for the storm that's 2023. If you don't have perfect credit in 2023, you're going to suffer, right? So you got to get your credit in order. Everything got to be on point. So I want y'all to put yourselves in the position of a doctor, all right? Just bear with me, take notes. I'm gonna be general as far as how to get that perfect credit in 2023 because I don't want to overcomplicate things. So just listen to what I say, take notes, most importantly, take action. So, how to fix your credit fast in 2023. So remember, you need to be a doctor, right? We're a doctor. We're putting ourselves in the position of a doctor. So number one, we're in the awareness phase, right? Because we're in the awareness phase, what you need to do is, number one, you need to get your credit reports. Where can you get your credit reports? You can get it at freeannualcreditreport.com. That will allow you to know what is actually reporting on your credit report. Because if we don't know what's reporting on our credit report, how are we going to move forward? How are we going to get that perfect credit? How are we going to get that perfect credit in 2023, right? So we're in the awareness phase. We need to know what's on our credit. So we get it from free annual credit report. We can also download Credit Karma, but keep in mind that's going to be your Vantage 3.0 score. So it's not necessarily going to be the score you need to focus on. You need to focus on the FICO score. But because we're in the awareness phase, we just want to know what's negative on our credit, if anything. We want to know if we have a thin profile. If we have a thin profile, then we need to build. Building, meaning we need to add primaries. We need to add, trade lines, things like that. So we have to really understand what's going on, the awareness phase. You know, when you go to your doctor, once you meet with the doctor, you're asking the doctor, you're telling the doctor, what you're experiencing and all of that. And your doctor is being made aware of what's going on with you. So you're the doctor, your credit reports are your patients, right? And I say plural patients because of the fact that you have Experian, you have TransUnion, and you have Equifax. They might all be the same. They might be different as far as, what's reporting on them. So keep that in mind. That's number one. Building this perfect credit in 2023. It's not hard. You just have to take action. So number one is awareness. We're in the awareness phase. Number two, once we're aware of what's negative on our credit or what is lacking, it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. Maybe we have a thin profile. Once we are made aware of what is on our credit profile, we move on to the diagnosis phase, right? Diagnosis phase. So what is the diagnosis phase? We're diagnosing what is wrong, right? We've been made aware. So we're the doctor. Okay, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Most common thing, like a common cold or whatever you want to call it, whatever is the most common sickness, runny nose, whatever you want to call it, right? The most common thing is not updating personal information. So in the diagnosis phase, number two, step two, this is where we're going to update all our personal information. We want to have one of everything. We don't want to have multiple addresses because we'll look unstable and that could be tied to negative items like collections. So keep that in mind. Update your personal information. You don't want to have too many names. You want to have one of everything, right? one job. Just show stability. That's what the diagnosis phase is for. We're cutting out the fat. We're cutting out the fat. It's like part one of treatment, right? So we're cutting out the fat, removing all, old personal identifiers. And speaking of treatment, like I said, the diagnosis phase is like treatment, is like the prerequisite to treatment, because the next phase is the actual treatment phase, right? So once we understand what's negative on our credit, or what is impacting our credit negatively, whether it's a thin profile or negative items, in the awareness phase, we move on to the diagnosis phase. The diagnosis phase, we are figuring out what's negative as far as, the personal items, collections, all of that, if we have a thin profile. And then we move on to the treatment phase. This is the final phase when it comes to having that great credit profile, how we want to fix our credit fast in 2023. We're going to make this very, very simple. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. So the final phase is the treatment phase. So if you got those negative collections, you got those late payments, negative student loans, inquiries, too many inquiries, this is the phase where we're actually applying treatment, right? And obviously, things range from, it's levels, right? Because if you just have a common cold versus cancer, obviously there's different treatment that's going to be, used for it. It's like if you just have inquiries versus a whole bankruptcy or child support or something, right? So you just got to identify it and then treat it appropriately. The same medicine that you use for a cough isn't necessarily going to be the same thing you use for cancer, right? So this is why you got to understand how to actually tackle these items. And if you don't know how to tackle these items, then you need to go to medical school. What is medical school? My podcast, the Consumer Ammunition Tactics Podcast, right? I teach you all the different treatments on how to treat any item you're going to come across, right? So I hope y'all liking the whole like medical school doctor analogy and everything I'm, trying to give you. I wanted to make this video a little bit different because the information that we're talking about, do this, that, and the third, that's what everybody says about credit. That's what I've said about credit, and it's true. But I just want to add a little, extra sauce to it by giving y'all a different analogy and how to think about it. So if you don't know how to treat a certain item, let's say you don't know how to treat collections, you weren't paying attention to medical school, you got to go to medical school. Medical school, go listen to all the episodes of the podcast, the CAP podcast, right? I think if you text podcast to 914-353-4741, you should get a link to the podcast. Or if you want to go to the website, catacticsllc.com, go ahead and tap in over there and click on podcast. You can begin binge listening to the podcast, going back to medical school, right? Because you want to look at your credit journey as, I need to be a doctor and I need to understand how to treat everything. When you look at it in that way, you're going to understand how you can actually get that perfect credit in 2023 and beyond, right? So yeah, I've discussed pretty much how to remove anything on the podcast as far as whether it's traditional credit repair methods or if it's consumer law. So it's like, I've given y'all all the information. It's just up for y'all. It's just up to y'all to go ahead and apply the information. Go ahead and make sure you're doing good in medical school, right? Listening to the podcast, taking action, right? If you in medical school, right, you just studying, you're not going to get paid or get results if you're not actually practicing, right? So just keep that in mind when it comes to actually taking action. You got to understand that you could be reading all the consumer laws all day. You could be listening to my podcast all day. If you don't actually practice it, it don't mean nothing. You basically did the same thing as somebody that didn't even listen to the podcast. Think about that. This is why it's important that you take action. This is why these doctors, they go to medical school and then they practice. They practice under someone, obviously. And then they practice. So my whole point being, you got to take action. So yeah, final thing I'll say, just keep in mind when it comes to the treatment, the treatment phase, you got to understand, like, when you're treating something like a sickness, it doesn't just go away right away, right? So depending on the severity, it could take longer. So just look at it in that way. Just to continue the analogy, Just remember, it'll take time, but if you're consistent, you're persistent, you're going to get that perfect credit in 2023. So just as a recap, if you want to grab the free guide that I have for you, just to give you a little bit more in depth of everything I talked about today, you can text the word perfect to 914-353-4741. Text the word perfect to 914-353-4741. Good luck. Y'all have a blessed one.